After 28 episodes, the first season of Soso no Frieren has reached its end, meaning it's time to overinterpret the names the author has given without having to fear spoiling half the plot. As you're probably aware, most of the names in Frieren are actually of German origin. While some of them are only a short reference to a person's power or what happens in a place, others are a pretty good representation of someone's character or even foreshadow plot twists. We'll take a look at all German names that appeared in the series. We'll first look at the character and monster names in order of appearance, and later on we'll look at the places in order of appearance and talk about the places we only got the names for and some other stuff. In this video I'll only be mentioning the meanings and interpretations that I personally think make a lot of sense.
Frieren.
After the intro, we're immediately greeted by our main character's name, Frieren, a name that basically just means freeze in the sense of feeling cold. This is referring most obviously to her disliking the cold, as we see in multiple scenes, and to her white hair, which is a color usually associated with freezing and the cold. But it can also refer to her emotional absence or feeling cold inside after the passing of Himmel, constantly remembering him and taking on a journey to relive her memories with him, Eisen, and Heiter.
Himmel.
The hero Himmel, a name which can mean both sky and heaven, a word which finds visual representation through his hair's sky blue color. It's a name that also refers to his passing and him having ascended to heaven. By looking at the phrase Himmel hilf, his name is probably also a reference to his nature of wanting to help everyone. While the phrase usually means God help, it literally means heaven help, or in this case, Himmel help.
Eisen.
The hero party's dwarf's name translates to iron. This is obviously referring to both him wearing iron armor and being a dwarf, as they're usually depicted as good with metals. Character-wise, it's referring both to him being unchanging over the years, but also to his sturdiness, for example, him being unfazed even when falling from great heights. It's also referring to his iron will in facing monsters despite being scared and physically trembling. Another possible interpretation appears if we look at the German saying Eisen wird an Eisen geschliffen, that literally translates to iron is polished with iron, which is a reference to him teaching Stark when both of them are afraid to fight, making them the same and thus Stark the iron that's being polished by Eisen. The corrupt priest who can't be made fun of enough times has a name that means cheerful, befitting of him always laughing and being in a good mood. There's another meaning to his name though, namely being the cornerstone of his personality, being drunk. In German you can say that someone is heiter or angeheitert when they've drank some alcohol. Fern's name means far, which refers first and foremost to her trial of hitting the rock on the other side of the gorge and her abilities as a ranged fighter. Additionally, it's also a reference to her being emotionally distanced. She's also very skilled at hiding her presence, making her hard to detect, almost as if she were far away. She's also from the southern lands, meaning she comes from far away.
Ewig.
A character who searched for immortality, something that is reflected by his name, which translates to eternal, as he's searching for eternal life. The elder sage of corruption, Qual, his name meaning torment, single-handedly wiped out 40% of the adventurers and 70% of the mages in Größe Forest, thus subjecting the people of the region to a lot of torment. It is said that he committed terrible atrocities, which can also be traced back to his name. Another option would be that it refers to the torment he suffered when he got all those scars that adorn his body.
Flamme.
Her name translates to flame, represented by her red hair and also her fire magic. She was the reason human mages were allowed to research magic, making her kind of the equivalent of Prometheus from Greek mythology, where he gave humanity fire, or in other words, flames. She granted humanity the wonder of magic.
Einsam.
These monsters are literally called lonely. They show their prey phantoms of the dead to lure them in with their feeling of longing for the dead person and thus their loneliness.
シュタルクという戦士がいる。
His name means strong. According to Eisen, stark is even stronger than him. But it can not only refer to his physical but also his mental strength, of him facing the enemy and doing what he perceives to be the right thing, even while afraid.
グラナト伯爵。
Graf Granat's name seems to only fit a single aspect of the character. His name is Count Garnet, the garnet being the red stone that's part of the family's crest. Furthermore, the garnet is the rock of love, referring to Granat's love for the son he lost to the demons.
Lügner!
His name, Liar, encapsulates all that he is. He's constantly telling lies and serves as our gateway to understanding the demons, creatures that only use words to deceive others, creatures that lie.
断頭台のアウラ。
Aura's name is simply the same word in English, aura. It's referring to a massive amount of mana, her ability to weigh the mana of two people on a scale, and her army of people who lost their will and head that's surrounding her like an aura.
ところでリニエ。
Her name means line, possibly referring to her being skilled at locating magic by finding the shortest line to the target. Another meaning could be a skill to copy abilities. In her own words, she memorizes the flow of mana, meaning she traces the line the mana flowed in to recreate the movements.
ドラートの魔力が探知できない。
His name, Wire, is referring to his magical wire he uses to fight. It may also refer to his figure, as you can call someone drahtig to say that they're slender.
玉座のバザルト。
General Basalt was the demon general who led the attack on Frieren's village. His name is the same in English as in German, Basalt. It's probably due to the basalt being a volcanic rock, meaning basalt cooled down or died after raising the village in his path.
文句のクラフトだ。
This monk's name means power or force. It's most obviously referencing his strength, but also him being a devout believer of the goddess, as Kraft can be used in the context of asking God for the power to move on. Gott, gib mir Kraft.
シュトルツはこの村の誇りだ。
His name can mean both proud and pride. While he himself is the pride of the village and his parents, he's also proud of his little brother Stark for trying his best and giving it his all.
それよりもSein。
With his name meaning to be, Sein is the epitome of living in the present, with him being addicted to gambling, alcohol, and cigarettes. Additionally, he disregards his own past and doesn't care about what happens to him in the future, as long as his brother is not the only one to suffer.
オルデン教。
This is a name I couldn't really make too much sense of. It can mean badge, medal, or order in the sense of, for example, a holy order. It's probably just a reference to him being a very militaristic and traditional man, but there might be more to it that eludes my eyes.
ビルトは療養中だと伝えてある。
I don't think Wirt is the correct transcription of the katakana, as it means something along the lines of tavern keeper or host to a parasite, both of which have absolutely nothing to do with the character. I believe the correct transcription to be wild, which can mean both wild and game in the sense of a hunted animal. The wild part can fit him fighting the enemy commander and beating him, and getting into an argument with his father, while the game part can be interpreted as him just being a hunting trophy to his father that he only viewed as a necessity to gain reputation.
ガーベル。
The butler's name, Gabel, simply means fork and is referring to him teaching Stark about etiquette, usually including which cutlery to use while dining.
ムート。
Orden's youngest son's name is Courage or Bravery. While he has the same learning ethic as Stark and is always giving his best, he's being encouraged rather than discouraged by his father, possibly leading to a future where he's the opposite of Stark, in that he's not a cowardly but instead a brave person.
フォルジーって言ってね。
His name means full, which stands for him being full of experiences, wisdom, and memories.
戦士ゴリラだ。
Another name that's the same in English as in German. Gorilla refers to him being strong, loud, and wild.
ナーゲルに
The blacksmith's name is Nail, probably one of the many things he's producing in his smithy. It might also refer to him hitting the metals he's working at the precise place he means to, as if he hit them with a nail.
ユーベル3級魔法使い。
This is another character whose name is represented by the hair color. Her name can be used in the context of Mir ist übel, which basically means I feel like I have to puke, which leads to the green color. Her name can also mean bad or the evil, which refers to her having no problem with murdering people, and according to Wirbel, she behaves like perverts who enjoy killing.
Genau.
His name translates to accurate or exact, which is most likely referring to the way he judges the applicants, very rigidly.
リアベル2級魔法使い。
Wirbel's name means whirl, which describes the way his spell Sorganir forms a whirl of mana around his target to bind it. Another possibility would be to look at einen Wirbel verursachen, which means cause a fuss, which would fit his complaints about luck not going his way and him generally complaining about a lot of things.
電剣2級魔法使い。
Denken means to think, and he's obviously putting a lot of thought into everything he does, often having plans on what to do before others even understand what's going on.
シュティレという
These birds are literally called silence. It's a reference to both them having basically no mana and thus being almost impossible to detect, but also to their speed, which is faster than the speed of sound, meaning you'd only hear them after they've already passed, thus making them silent while you can see them.
ラヴィーネ
Lawine means avalanche and refers to both her ice magic and her dragging Kanne along with her.
カンネだよ
Kanne means jug, but is more often associated with a teapot or a watering can. This is a reference to a water magic and her being unable to create water herself and that she needs it to be near her to use it. Like the teapot or watering can need to be filled with liquid first.
ラント様の援護に向かいましょう
There are two meanings to Land's name. The first being country, which is hinting at his distrustful attitude of not wanting to disclose any of his secrets to others and being fully aware that current friends may turn into enemies in the future. The second is a reference to probably the biggest twist so far, him not even having left his home village the entire time. This can be a possible meaning of his name since Land can be used to refer to the countryside.
シャルフと合流する。
Scharf means sharp, referring to his magic of turning petals into metal, wielding them as sharp objects and manipulating them to his will.
エーレがやられたのかよ。
Ehre means honor, and is her name to honor her honorable character, where she helps others like offering to introduce Wirbel to her grandpa so he can take the sea route should he fail the exam. She was also the valedictorian of the Academy of Magic, which must have been quite the honor.
ガイゼル。
Geisel means hostage, and they're monsters that use the body of their prey to lure someone in to try and save them, making the first prey their hostage.
ラウフェンの魔法謎。
Laufen means run, and it's referring to her high movement speed due to her spell Jirvea.
全然。
Her name means scythe, and is probably a metaphor for death, as death is usually depicted with this scythe. Additionally, the personification of death is also called Sensenmann in German. We can see a Stille on her even while she's moving, meaning she's incredibly good at suppressing her mana, almost as if she were dead. Another meaning is the literal one of her being a scythe that's used to reap the new first-class mages in the exam, as is hinted at by Serie when she says we've had an abundant harvest this year.
やめろ、リヒター。
Richter means judge and is referring to him constantly judging people. It's also said by Lawine that he's the type to abandon his allies unless there are rules against it, meaning he adheres to the rules and lives by them like a proper judge. Additionally, his name can be viewed as a reference to the Richter scale, which is used to measure the strength of earthquakes, which would be fitting since his magic manipulates the ground.
大魔法使いゼーリエは
Seria's name has two meanings. One is that of a series. Due to her being said to know every spell humans created, she herself is and owns a series of grimoires. The other meaning is in the geological sense, where Seria means a time span of millions of years, which is a reference to her being ancient, and maybe also a hint at her actual age. His name can mean both sound or clay, based on him being saved by one of Lernen's clay golems. I'd guess it's supposed to be clay. We can see another possibility by looking at the phrase den Ton angeben, which basically means giving orders, which would explain why he disliked the idea of teaming up with Denken, as he would have been the leader.
メトーデの観測結果の通りだ
Methode means method and is referring to her being open to discussion for different methods on how to approach things. She also has multiple different types of spells, meaning she has a lot of methods she can use to fight someone. We can also see her reflect the gargoyle's attack right back at him, meaning she fights enemies with their own methods. We know basically nothing about her, so it's hard to come up with something fitting. Länge means length and could be referring to her reading a lot of lengthy books, as we see her in some sort of library when she receives the notification for the second test. His name means lead, and it's probably a reference to him standing his ground against Sense's mirror image to protect Dunst. Dunst means vapor, which could possibly be his name because he barely had screen time and we won't ever see him again after this arc, meaning he just came and disappeared, like vapor. Edel means noble, referring to a hypnosis magic that uses her voice to command others like a noble would command their vassals. He's literally called delicious, as his food should be, as a cook who promised only the best tastes to Frieren.
農作物を荒らすフレッサーの討伐依頼を受けていてな。
This monster is called Gobbler or Glutton, and it looks like a giant boar which are known to eat a lot and basically everything.
異論はないな、レルネ。
His name means learn, referencing him being a disciple of Seria, as well as him striving for more knowledge through research and him being aware that he still has a lot to learn, as he said he can't possibly qualify to test Frieren. He's also recognized Frieren's mage symbol, meaning he's probably learned lots of different things before.
シュピーゲルと呼んでいる
The monster Spiegel is called Mirror as it creates perfect mirror images of the visitors of its dungeon.
ブルグ一級魔法使い
The first class mage who was known for his impenetrable defense is called Castle, but even his castle gate was breached by the siege engine that is Übel.
ファルシュ。
His name means wrong, possibly referring to him being wrong about Frieren not concealing her mana. The word can also be used in the context of someone putting on a facade, so he might also just play a role and be deceiving everyone.
不死なるベーゼや。
Böse means evil and refers to him being an evil being in the Demon King's army. The Holy City Strahl, a name that can mean beam. The Holy City title makes it seem more like a Strahl der Hoffnung situation though, which means beacon of hope. This is misspelled on the map and should be Tag, meaning day. I believe the name to be a reference to how Fern feels like Frieren is wasting her time and that she doesn't want to keep wasting day after day, and that even a single day can be meaningful in the short lifespan of a human. Warm is the same in English, warm. And it's probably just referring to a warm climate in the area. It may also refer to Frieren warming up to Fern. Größe means size, possibly referring to the huge size of the forest. I believe the other option to be more plausible though, which would be greatness, as this is the forest where the hero party defeated and sealed the Sage of Corruption Qual, being the first step on their This is another misspelled word on the map, as the R should be an L. Glanz means shine or gloss, which is what the water does when the sun reflects off of it. And another word that's supposed to be written differently. It's supposed to be written with double T instead of DT. Brett means plank, and Eisen's house in the Brett region is made of planks. This meaning is lost in the anime cause they turned his plank hut into a rock house.
フォル盆地か。
Voll once again means full, and there's a grimoire from Flamme hidden here that's full of knowledge to help Frieren.
オレオールにたどり着いた。
Aureole is another word that's the same in English, aureole. Interestingly, the Japanese seems to be closer to the French auréole than the German aureole, even in the manga. It can mean halo, which is a reference to both angels and saints. Angels living in heaven, which the people of Frieren's world commonly call aureole, and saints having to have died before they're pronounced saints.
エンデ。
Ende means end, and is referring to Ende being at the end of the continent, as well as it marking the end of the journey of the hero party, and maybe even the series. Wille means will in English, and is a reference to the Einsam in the region, because you need a strong will to break free from their illusions. Additionally, they kind of pass on the will of the deceased by behaving exactly like they would.
リーゲル峡谷沿いにある村に
Riegel means bar or bolt. It's a metaphor for Stark protecting the village by being the bar that closes off the gate so the dragon can't come in and do what it wants, destroy the village. Wall is an old German word that's referring to the castle walls, the moat, and the entire defensive terrain. Basically, all that makes up a proper castle. Eng is German for narrow, possibly referencing the narrow mountain path. If used in the sense of das wird eng, it can also refer to something being hard to accomplish in a given time, which would be the case for clearing the path of the rubble.
オイサーストだな
Äußerst means especially, and in the case of der äußerste Ring, it can mean outermost. The especially meaning might refer to the especially hard exam. Outermost could be referring to it being the outermost city without restricted travel, meaning it's the last city before reaching the northern plateau.
迷った。
Decke can mean both blanket and roof. The blanket part would be referring to the snow lying on the ground like a blanket, and roof would be referring to the sky being blocked by tons and tons of clouds, making them almost like a roof, blocking light from entering. It can also refer to the importance of having a roof above their heads, and thus the shack they rest in. Schwer can mean heavy, hard, or harsh. The first two are most likely referencing pulling out the sword of the hero, whereas harsh is referring to the weather conditions and the monsters in the area. Appetit means appetite and is a reference to the huge Hamburg steak Frieren makes Stark for his birthday. While alt, meaning old, could make some sense due to the forest being quite old, I believe this is supposed to be art instead, which means species and would refer to the many different species of poisonous animals in the woods. Draht means advice and is referring to Sein giving advice to both Frieren and Stark on how to handle their conflicts and mediating between the two. Bande can mean interpersonal ties or bond, usually in a romantic sense, referring to the bond between Stark and Fern growing stronger and Frieren recalling her bond with Himmel. Laub means foliage and is referring to how the people in this region are lying on the ground like fallen leaves due to the sleep curse that's affecting them. This could potentially be supposed to be Raub, which would mean robbery, referring to the time that was stolen from those who fell asleep and them being robbed of their consciousness as well as their mana.
あれがフォーリヒか
Vorig means previous, and it's the city before Äußerst, making it the previous city. Klee means clover and might be referring to there being a lot of clovers in the region, or it could have something to do with Stark being lucky to have survived the attack on his village. Klar means clear and is most probably referencing the clear sky we see the entire time they're there. Another option would be that it's referencing Old Man Voll slowly forgetting things and maybe getting dementia, as bei klarem Verstand means in the right mind. Rohr means pipe. It's not entirely clear what this is referring to, but it might be that the road is very straight like a pipe before branching out. Often means open and may be referring to them sleeping outside, which can be unter offenem Himmel in German. It might also refer to the mountain range being very large and having many easy paths to enter them. Kühl means cool and might be referring to the region's cool climate due to not only being high up north, but also there being a huge lake, as temperature is usually lower around bodies of water. Grob means rough or unprecise. The rough part can be interpreted in the way of the participants being rough with each other and even killing each other, and the unprecise part can be viewed in a way of them not really having any clue of how and where to find the Stille. The following four weren't shown yet and we know nothing about them, so they're all just speculation based on the names we receive.
Tür.
On the map shown in episode 1, this place is called Tür, which means door, and on the map we see in episode 25, it's Tor, which means gate. This might mean that this city has shrunk over time. Additionally, this is probably an important place to get somewhere. Korridor means corridor and is probably just a gateway to get to some other places. Morgenrot is the word for the sky turning red when the sun is rising. This might be a similar situation to Glanz, where there's a visual spectacle due to the sunrise. Boden means ground, but can also refer to the lowest part of something like the bottom of a glass, which would be a reference to it being at the bottom of the continent. Ehre is very similar to the English equivalent era. It's a name given to the meteor shower because it appears only once every 50 years, enough time to lead to a different era. Merkur refers to the planet Mercury in German, which could be a reference to it being very good, as in German you can say something as außerirdisch gut, which basically means so good it can't be from this world. Ruf means reputation and is probably a reference to Himmel, whose favorite food this is, having a great reputation. They mention the Empire's currency is called Strahlcoins, but this just comes from the holy city Strahl. Additionally, it might also mean that the coins are very shiny, since strahlend means radiant. The spells in this series are a bit of an outlier in terms of names, in that they're not entirely German. Some contain German words, but others don't even come close. There are many theories on the meaning and interpretation of the spell names, but this video is already very long, so I don't think this would fit too well into this video. If you're interested in a separate video on the spell names, please let me know down in the comments. Well, we've reached Ende. Thanks for watching, and please leave a like or comment if you enjoyed the video. If you have other ideas on what certain names could mean, feel free to discuss them in the comments as well.